Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. Today I would like to discuss the Norwegian black metal legends Emperor, definitely my favorite black metal band of all time. We're gonna rank the studio albums, look at a couple odds and ends, and if you care enough, stick around till the end where I'll talk a little bit about my first time seeing Emperor live here in March 2026. So my first exposure to Emperor was in the pages of Metal Maniacs and Terrorizer back in the mid-90s. But I was definitely young at the time, and all the controversy surrounding the band definitely spooked me a little bit. But eventually I got my hands on this. This is the Firestarter compilation released by Century Media, Century Black in, it's probably 1997, 1998. And although this is many well-known songs and bands on here, this is definitely an amazing mix of stuff that I still stick in the car stereo here and there, despite being a sampler. But very nostalgic for me for sure. But the first song on here is Emperor's Thus Spake the Night Spirit. Still one of my favorite songs by the band to this day, and I was hooked at that point. So now we're going to go to the early days of the band. This here is a compilation of the debut demo, Wrath of a Tyrant, and then their first EP, the self-titled Emperor EP. So on here we have the Wrath of the Titan demo, much more streamlined, raw, and has more in common with fellow Norwegians such as Mayhem and Darkthrone. But my favorite songs on here have got to be Night of the Graveless Souls and Ancient Queen. Also on this CD, again, there is the debut EP that will contain 2 songs from the demo, Wrath of a Titan, and then 2 new songs that would go on to be on the debut album in the Nightside Eclipse. But we'll talk about those songs more as we get to it. So I didn't listen to this stuff for many years after becoming a fan, but it's totally worth your time. If you haven't checked out the old Emperor stuff, I suggest you do that. Looking at another EP here, this is Thorns versus Emperor. Again, this is a 2011 edition, but this also came out late 90s, early 2000s. I forget when exactly. This is a mixed bag for sure. You have the Norwegian band Thorns that are influential, but have only released one full-length album way back in the day, and I don't even really like that release all that much. However, what's got to be their trademark song, Airy Descent, is on here, along with Emperor doing a cover of that same song. That is an undeniably classic song in the world of Norwegian black metal. But you have stuff like Exordium, which is a weird experimental track by Emperor. Not into it. One thing I do think is really good is the Thus March the Night Spirit. It is a classical interpretation of Thus Spake the Night Spirit. And I am by no means an expert on classical music, but I do think it is a song that I think it feels like a classical piece of music to me, while you can totally tell the metal song that it initially came from. So I think that is a pretty great track. Got Cosmic Keys, covered by Thorns. A bit of everything on here, but I only suggest it for the completists out there. And before we get into the full-length albums, we're also going to look at Scattered Ashes, a decade of Imperial Wrath, a collection / greatest hits of sorts from Emperor. So, despite classic well-known songs, you have some demo songs, you have a live track, a rehearsal track, a remix track. But I think the things that I come to this compilation the most for is some of the covers here. You have A Fine Day to Die by Bathory, Cromlech by Darkthrone, and especially Gypsy by Merciful Fate. That's my the most valuable thing on this compilation to me. And actually, we'll also look at my copy of Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, because they have a EP, Reverence, that has the song The Lost and Curse of Reverence. It was a preview for the Anthems album. But then there'll be two other songs, In Longing Spirit, which is a song that I've never been a fan of. That's one of my least favorite Emperor songs. It's totally quality, but just kind of goes over my head whenever I listen to it. And then Opus, a Satana. Much in the way that I just discussed, Thus Spake the Night Spirits, classical interpretation, there's another similar song, which is taking, a Satana from Inside Eclipse and doing a classical version of it. So, let's get going with my Emperor ranking. There's two albums in particular that you'll find at the top of most lists. But which one people put number one, you never know. However, my last place is no surprise. I'm going to go with the fourth and final album, Prometheus, The Discipline of Fire and Demise, from 2001. You know what? I've been spending a lot of time with this album recently, and through the years, I think I always gave it a little bit too much credit. I always said, yes, it's by far the worst Emperor album, but I still give it a 9.5 out of 10. Almost perfect. I think I was being a little generous here. The last several times I've given it a listen, not very memorable. Some people say it's scatterbrained. I don't think so. I think it flows pretty well as an album, not too jarring in any way. But definitely the most boring thing, despite being the most experimental. My favorite tracks are The Prophet and The Tongue of Fire. And I'm going to give this a grade of about 8 out of 10. But for the record, everything from here on out is a 10 out of 10 for me. So my number 3 might be a bit of an unpopular take, but I'm going to go with In the Nightside Eclipse, the debut album from 1994. Now, this is as classic 90s black metal as it gets. But for many years, I found it unmemorable. And to this day, I find it quite samey throughout. No denying, just, again, like, the classicness of the whole thing. Into the Infinity of Thoughts, I Am the Black Wizards, those are the two hits off of here. And those two songs themselves actually are pretty similar to each other, if you ask me. But, I mean, you gotta throw those two songs on as two of the staples of the album. But beyond that, I gotta go with, Towards the Pantheon is my sentimental favorite. Definitely sounds like the cover looks. Ice cold and epic. 10 out of 10. My number 2 is Equilibrium, the third album from 1999. Definitely bringing some new things into their sound. High-pitched vocals in places that bring to mind Rob Halford and King Diamond. A bit more of a death metal influence. But what I really love about this album, and that goes for all their material really, but they're just so sophisticated and detailed and atmospheric. But at the same time, when they get intense, they're just, they just go full berserker mode in the most elegant way possible. I don't know how to put it. That's what Emperor does best. It's just a raging storm that is just controlled chaos. I mean, my honorable mentions are going to be Curse You All Men, the opening song, and one of the most direct songs of the band's catalog, along with Source of Icon E. But I'd say my two favorites got to be Decrystallizing Reason and then Warriors of Modern Death. I think that is the most badass song of the Emperor catalog, and I especially love that guitar soloing that begins and ends the track. So I guess you guessed what my number one is. Most people will tell you In the Nightside Eclipse or Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. I am definitely an Anthems guy. 1997, one of my favorite albums of all time. I was going to show you the disc, but I can't because that is in the car stereo, where that's in the car all the time, to be honest with you. As I said on my top 10 albums of all time video, this when I want a metal album that I just don't want to think about it. It's just going to hit the spot every time. I stick that one in. Favorite songs? Gotta be Thus Spake the Night Spirit and The Lost and Curse of Reverence. But this is a perfect album from beginning to end. The intro song here, The Oath, very long and pompous classical style intro. I'm ripping off The Observation, but I was listening to the Requiem Metal podcast discussion on the album, and they said, the way it just shows how confident the band is, what they attempt to do on this album while being extremely young men. But again, that pompous intro that has that statement of "I am the Emperor," and it just saying, what? Like, we're about to lay it down here. And that's what they do. Every song's perfect, 10 out of 10. Again, one of my favorite albums ever. So we're going to talk about the live show now. Live, the Concert Hall in Toronto, March 27th, 2026. That is their first time playing Toronto since 1999. They were supporting the Equilibrium album. I remember when the show happened, but at that time I was probably 15, 16 years old. So I was definitely too young to get into that. But Emperor, that is people that are still alive. That was my number one show I got to see. Was thrilled to be able to get it. I remember as soon as I saw the tickets were on sale, I put that reminder in my phone for 10 minutes before tickets went on sale, grabbed my ticket, and then the show sold out quite early. And I remember a couple days before the show, I was, and actually up to the day of the show, just to see, what are people trying to get for tickets. But, you couldn't even get a resale ticket as far as I could see. So everyone with tickets were determined to be there. And the opener was Blood Incantation. I totally dig Blood Incantation, but in just about 3 weeks from now, I'm going to go see Mortis live in Toronto. And just imagine Mortis would be opening for Emperor. That would have been a special night for sure. But totally dig Blood Incantation. But I've seen them before, and I'm sure I'm going to see them again. So I spent their set in the line for merch. But I could definitely see the band a bit from where I was standing. And speaking of merch, let's take a look at what I bought. I bought the red tour shirt. So there's the As the Shadows Rise imagery on there. We got the Imperial Wrath Tour 2006 with the tour dates, Blood Incantation on the back. They had a 7-inch there of some old songs that was like 75 bones. So I didn't get that, but I kind of wish I did. However, I am very excited about this poster here. So here's the tour poster, again with all the information. And this is like a felt style material. Wasn't cheap either, but I am definitely waiting to frame this before I put this on the wall. So, the show, definitely first two albums focused. There was 5 songs from Anthems, 4 songs from Eclipse, then I think it was one song from Prometheus and two songs from Equilibrium. They started off with Into the Infinity of Thoughts, perfect opener, and they close with Inno a Satana, followed by a one song encore of Ye in Transiperium. Top three moments of the show for me. I gotta go with, they played Wrath of the Tyrant from the demo, and there was just a moment where I saw Isan and Samus just kind of lock eyes and smile with just kind of a, fuck yeah, here we are, 30 years later, on stage playing music together, and just kind of noticed that and thought that was kind of a special moment. Thus Spake the Night Spirit, near the end of the song, the clean singing, Embrace My Soul part. Unfortunately, I'm the kind of guy that just kind of stands and watches. I don't really put my hands in the air or hoot and holler. I wish I could kind of let myself go a little more, but just with the crowd singing along with that, wish I took part. But I'll remember that moment for sure. And then With Strength I Burn, just one of those moments where you have a powerful, inspirational song, and I just kind of locked in and projected my own life and the good and the bad, and just kind of relating to the song in my own way. So that was an amazing experience. Hope it's not my hope it's not my last time seeing Emperor live, but may or may not be the case, but I hope not. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.